Hmm. Okay, so I think applied to, because we've got two, that part of the phrase there. So what we're talking about here are categories. So we're putting birds into categories. We're saying some of them are pigeons, some of them are doves. We're applying those categories and we're applying them to different species. We're saying some species belong in this category, some belong in this category. Um, so we could say while the term pigeon tends to be attached to or used for or uh, maybe related to um, larger species or connected to, because there's a process of putting a label on something. But I think applying a term is probably the most common one in usage. If we're using a term, that means a category. We're applying that term as we categorize. It's like putting a label on something. Um, and then because this is about deciding which categories different birds belong in, it has to be a distinction. It's a distinction between groups. So there's no scientific or evolutionary distinction between them. We've just decided more or less arbitrarily. Yeah, so one way to distinguish between animals is to show how their evolution is different. Even though these two animals look similar, they came from a very different pathway through evolution. Whereas in the case of pigeons and doves, they're effectively the same type of bird and they have the same evolution. We just call some larger birds pigeons and some smaller ones doves, but we're not very consistent in doing that. Yeah, so the scientist notes in her, it's a type of book, it's a guide, but when you're looking at birds, a field guide is the kind of small book that you can take out into a field, literally into a field or into a forest or outside while you're watching birds and say, okay, that's that bird that I can see in this guide. So you can go and buy these if you want. There are illustrated field guides. Yeah. And they're especially well liked by people who go to watch birds or who go to who want to know about plants. So you could get an illustrated field guide of plants in a particular environment and then go out and see and find those plants. Yeah. So it's her book. This scientist, she's written a book. It's an illustrated field guide. Um, yeah. I don't think it's strictly an evolutionary change because I actually think they're essentially the same. It's just a domesticated version of a rock dove. But descends from, has evolved from, either of those could work. Has evolved from, descends from. It also means descent as in ancestry. So what it's saying is that its ancestors were rock doves. Yeah. But I don't think there's any biological distinction between them. I think they can still breed with each other. I think that it's just that pigeons are semi-domesticated, whereas rock doves aren't. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes. Yes. It's well we just call them pigeons here. I also think that there are domesticated pigeons and they have some of them have quite fancy different colored coats. Like they'll have different colors, whereas the ones that live kind of around the city are mostly that kind of grey. No, what they're saying is that there's no firm distinction between the two. So those are, I call the brown one a dove and the white one a dove. Yeah, that's a dove. Yeah, and but so is the white one. Yeah. The thing is that the white dove that you've just shown me is probably also a pigeon. It's just one that's been bred for that color. Yeah.